So there was a period of my life where I had a lot of different jobs in the retail and service industry in a very short space of time. I'm talking like 4 jobs in as many months. What can I say? It wasn't the best time in my life. And one of these jobs had me working in a designer menswear store. And that's a job I went into thinking like, oh, it's gonna be great. I'm gonna be giving people lots of nice service. I'm gonna be wearing suits. They're gonna want my expertise. It's gonna be amazing. Well, it turns out this particular job was one of the worst I'd ever had for a number of reasons. The other members of staff would consistently make fun of me for not being able to afford the clothes that we sold, as though a single father in his 20s should have all the disposable income in the world, despite the ironically abysmal wage that they paid me. And the customers were no better, believe me. I have this theory that the less necessary for human beings' survival the service you're providing is, the more likely they are to be a dick about it. It's the reason that people are particularly horrible to waiting staff. And the customers to this store were no exception. They were rude, they were demanding, they looked down on me because of my age. It was just an all-round bad scene. So I've been working at the store for about 3 weeks when this middle-aged guy comes in with a couple of friends and he wants a full suit and a coat to go with it. And we got paid on commission there, so I'm thinking that's great, this is perfect, this is my opportunity to make a good sale and really prove myself to my other members of staff, just try and make the best of this situation that I found myself in. So I start assisting this chap, and since I've only been there for 3 weeks and have received little to no training whatsoever, I'm floundering. I'm flustered, I'm nervous, I'm not sure what to recommend, and this guy is getting visibly irritated. Just at that moment, the assistant manager, who was currently on his lunch break, comes running. Literally running through the store, cuts in front of me and immediately starts charming and schmoozing this guy. He's recommending suits and ties and coats and shoes. Meanwhile, I am subtly shooed off to the stockroom to go and fold shirts. Now, I am understandably pissed off at this moment. I mean, sure, help the new kid out with the sale, but he had undercut me completely. He had taken my sale away and the commission that went with it. And I am ready for all-out war when he comes into the stockroom. I am just about ready to launch into some serious writer's indignation when he lifts his hand up and says, "Jim, I know what you're going to say, but listen." So it turns out the guy I'd been serving was essentially one of the heads of the local mafia, and I'm talking full-on cliched mob family. 3 sons who run the show under the instruction of their elderly mother, this all-seeing matriarch pulling the strings while her sons provide the muscle. I won't go into too much detail of their activities for my own safety, but let's just say it's not above board. The assistant manager then goes on to explain the reason he undercut me quite so aggressively is that this family, and this brother in particular, do not take kindly to poor customer service. In fact, about 18 months prior to this, they had taken some suits to a dry cleaner in the city quite near where I live, and the dry cleaner had damaged one of the suits. So they drove a van through the dry cleaner's front window. Yeah. Despite the fact that the assistant manager had essentially saved my life and went significantly up in my estimations from that point onwards, unsurprisingly I quit fairly soon after that. Some things are just not worth 10% commission.
So I sometimes work customer service at a grocery store, which means I mostly accept bottle returns, I sell cigarettes, but I also get to help people returning products. This woman, probably in about her 60s, comes in looking for a manager. She was looking to exchange her cauliflower because it had gone bad. As I continue helping customers in line, I hear her talking. She bought a cauliflower at a different of our locations, and it went bad, so she went to that location, got it replaced. Now the replacement has gone bad, and she is looking to get her replacement replaced. I'm glad I got out of this one because all I hear my manager say is, "How long do you think cauliflower lasts?"
One day I was working as a hostess in a restaurant called El House, which is a sports bar kind of thing. I'm very used to people coming to me and asking me if I can translate something for them because I was the only host that speaks Spanish and that speaks Portuguese. But this particular night, and this little girl, that she was like 9 or 10 years old, she came to me and she seems very sad, and she asked me if I could come to her table because her mom needed someone that speaks Spanish, and I said yes. And I went to her table and I saw her mom. She was talking to someone by the phone and she looked really, really upset. And I thought that it was because something had gone bad with her order, or maybe the server was rude or something like that. So I asked her like what was going on, how can I help her? And she told me that she tried to pay for her food, but her credit card was denied. And she felt very shameful, but she had nothing to do, like she didn't have any money, and she was trying to talk to her husband to see if he can come and pay for her, but he was at work and he couldn't do anything about it. And the particular moment I remember that something very similar happened to me and my mom when we just came here to the United States. I came here when I was 14, and we came here with $500 in our pockets. We went away like this, and she, for my first 15th birthday, she tried to buy me a piece of cake. And when she went to pay that piece of cake, she didn't realize that she didn't have enough money to pay that cake. So I just remember that I was in a very, very similar situation to these two people, and I decided that I was going to pay their bills. So I told the lady that she didn't have to worry about anything, that I was going to pay her bill. And she told me that she was very grateful, and she almost started crying. And she told me that she can come the next day and just pay me what she owed me. And I told her that that wasn't necessary, that it was a pleasure for me to do it. And I remember that day I felt really, really proud. I really wish that someone had done that for my mom and for me when I was 15 years old.
I've been a waitress now for about 3 years at this tiny Chinese restaurant down the road from where I live that's been run by the same family for over 50 years. One night, about a year ago, we had a blackout right in the middle of service. It was just before 6 o'clock, and we already had customers seated, but the lights had stopped working, and the fridges were done, and the coffee machine wasn't spitting out any hot water. It was a very inconvenient time, but the phone lines and the gas for the stoves was just fine, and my boss decided that this was an indication that we should just continue on. So everybody, customers and staff alike, pulled out their phones and switched it on to torch mode. My boss had me call up my mum to ask her to come down with her candles so we could have a bit more light, and we just kept going. By the time the lights came back on, the front of the shop where the dining area was smelled like a candle shop or like a Lush body soap place, and the kitchen was just filled with smoke, and everybody's eyes were watering because the exhaust system was shot. But despite that, everybody was really happy. Everybody was in a good mood. It was like the blackout put both us and the customers in the same position and on the same team, and I never figured out how it started, but it was one of the more fun nights I've had working in a restaurant.
So I openly identify as pansexual, and I also worked at a Christian restaurant for 4.5 years, and it was really, really terrible. Because I was in high school and also went to a performing arts high school, I had to work part-time, so my hours were really weird. Now at the time I was religious, and so I was having a lot of conflicting feelings about my identity, both sexually and religiously, and this was absolutely the worst environment to try and figure all of that out. So one day I go in, and I see that I'm scheduled to work with my openly gay coworker, and I was really excited because he's a really awesome dude. But he was also the butt of every single joke you could possibly think of, and then some. The problem was a lot of these jokes were coded, and also a lot of times came from management, which meant that they were reinforcing a culture where these things were okay. Plus at the time I technically lived in what's known as the South, so you can imagine how open-minded the general population in this area of the world is. Most people are not. And so on this day there's a lunch rush, and him and I are getting orders out as fast as we can with big smiles on our faces, and he ended up being called to the back and got fired on the spot. Management said something to the effect like his times were too slow or some minor infraction that they blew out of proportion, and he was forced to go, but most of us knew that it was because he didn't fit in with the culture because he was openly gay. And so to the employee who knew he wasn't straight but also didn't really know what was going on there, it didn't feel good. I should also note that my coworkers varied in age, some of them as young as 15 and a half getting their first job with a work permit, and some in their late 50s. This was the job that got me through high school. It allowed me to save up and buy my crappy first car, it allowed me to pay my cell phone bill every month, and it gave me just enough freedom to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. In a number of ways I needed to keep this job, but I also sufficiently passed for straight, so it was easier for me if I just shut up and maintained silence. I was very careful to never give anybody a reason to question whether or not I was straight, and though I wasn't jumping in to help perpetuate the discrimination, I wasn't exactly jumping up to defend my values or my fellow coworkers either. I finally summoned the courage to leave after a kids' meal toy recall. See, we were told to tell customers that the toys were defective, but really the parent company had come out and said, hey, we're not cool with licensing our toys to you because you guys are acting kind of bigoted. All of this is public record and all of it's really crappy, but I was already lying to myself about who I was, and now I was being told to lie to customers and get paid for it. And I wish this was a story where I could tell you that I stuck to my guns and stormed out of there and quit, but I kept it professional, and I sheepishly gave my 2 weeks because I needed the job. What I did do was I vowed to never work for somebody who would treat me that way again. And when I walked out of there, I felt free. I finally felt like I had taken a step towards honoring my true self and figuring out what the heck that is. And I know that a lot of people don't get that luxury. And that's not a revolutionary statement, but it is a very, very important perspective. Because nobody should be forced to choose between who they are inside and how they're gonna eat that day. You shouldn't be forced to choose between how you're gonna pay the rent and how you're gonna feel about yourself. I guess the point of all of this is that when I was serving, I didn't feel like I was being served. And that's a problem.
I come at you in full screen mode because I have an announcement. My friend Emma, she's also known as Elma Phi on YouTube. She also co-hosts a show called How to Adult, has written a book. It's called First and Then. This is the advanced reader's edition, and I've read it and I really like it. In August, Emma is going on an official First and Then vlog tour, and guess who's on it? Not me. This project. As I was reading the book, I picked out a couple of themes that I saw were throughout the book, in my opinion, and I chose one of the themes. So one of the episodes of One Time Stories will have a theme that is inspired by this book. The theme is Not What It Seems. Stories of the world defeating your expectations. So if you have a story that fits this theme and want to be a part of this vlog tour, submit it to onetimestories.com/tellastory. The deadline for this is July 15th, Monday, July 15th. It's so quick because I have a big trip coming up in August and I need to plan way ahead for this episode. Just a reminder that you don't film your stories beforehand and then submit them. You write them out on a form on the website and then we talk through your story together. Also, you don't have to have a big fancy camera set up or a fancy mic to tell a story. You can tell it on your webcam or even on your cell phone. It's no big deal to us. So yeah, July 15th. Tell a story. Okay. There's an airplane going right on time. Bye.